Some corners of Jerusalem were established more than 100 years ago by ultra-Orthodox Jews from Russia and from parts of Europe that were to be absorbed into the Soviet Empire. Here, a deeply religious life is still fiercely maintained, a strong contrast to the sausage counters of Ashdod. Some Israelis argue that the million and more Russians who arrived in the most recent Aliyah can hardly be considered Jews at all, detached as they have become from their religious tradition by centuries of violent anti-Semitism and the militant atheism of the communist years. But I meet a group of people eager to rediscover their Jewish identity. They come together each week for lessons in Judaism. The teacher tonight is a distinguished rabbi, Rav Eliyahu Esses.
We want to create a corridor how to enter the Jewish society, how to enter the Jewish tradition. We are Israeli citizens, the state is state, everything is okay, but tradition you cannot buy in the shop. You can buy a book, you cannot buy tradition. You have to enter somehow.
Back in the 70s and 80s, Rav Eliyahu was one of those rare and brave Russians who committed themselves to rediscovering their Jewish birthright, despite being punished by the Soviet system. They were known as the refuseniks. The rabbi's life had been transformed when he first read the words of Moses in the Torah.
Suddenly, I started to feel not heavenly voices, nothing of this sort. Simply in my heart, a warm feeling that the words of Moses were also for me. Not some mystical direct speech to me, but simply powerful words of wisdom, deep thought and ethical morals and ethical way of life. And it was for me as a Jew, as any Jew. He was Jewish, Moses, and I am Jewish. So we had this, it cannot be dialogue, but sort of a voice from 3,000 years ago that I understood very deeply. I want to live this way of life.
The rabbi was eventually allowed to leave the Soviet Union, and he arrived in what he had long dreamed of as the holy city of Jerusalem.
I came, I'm at home. That's it. From this second, I'm at home. Before, a wandering Jew, in the deserts, whatever. From this second, I'm at home. And this feeling is till today.
Has it been what you'd hoped it would be? Are Israelis what you'd hoped they'd be?
Much less spiritual, as Israel, as society in general, and I'm talking about really, society in general is much less spiritual, much more materialistic, and much less idealistic, as I would expect.
But for some of the rabbi's pupils, Israel is beyond criticism.
This magical feeling that you're protected here, and you just feel it, that's all. Don't need any explanation, you just feel it.
So even though there
have a protection here.
Even though there's fighting in down south in Gaza and danger from the West Bank and whatever, you don't feel that anxious about any of that?
No. I visited many times friends, and in other countries I was like without skin, Here I have my skin.
One student came to Israel with her Jewish husband, although she is not Jewish herself. Now she has decided to become a convert, with Rav Eliyahu as her spiritual guide. But in Israel, conversion is not a one-way street.
My ex-husband, Jew, without any doubt. And this magic land, doing magic things with people. I'm not Jew, almost not Jew. I decided to be a Jew. My ex-husband, after divorced, it happened 6 years ago, he became a Christian. He now has beard and everything, and cross, and special candles, and he's going to a Christian temple. And but for me, better he'll know the God by this way than don't know the God at all, because the Bible the same. almost the same.
There are said to be more than 200,000 Russian Orthodox believers in Israel today, most of them linked to Jews through marriage or family descent. I come across several groups of them worshipping alongside their fellow Christians at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, the site of the tomb of Christ. I witnessed these Russian immigrants placing valued personal objects on the stone where they believe the body of Christ was washed after the crucifixion. They are hoping to draw spiritual power from this sacred place. By coincidence, there are about 200,000 Orthodox Christians of Palestinian descent in Israel and the occupied territories. It's anyone's guess what impact this rapid influx of newcomers from Russia will have on Christianity in the Holy Land. But there are already rumors that the Russian Orthodox hierarchy are trying to increase their influence. The ultimate effect that all of the 1.25 million Russian immigrants will have on this volatile corner of the world is also an open question. Is their very diversity likely to dilute their influence, or will they eventually develop a unified voice, a Russian voice? One place where that unified voice is starting to be heard is in politics. Yosef Shagal, like Anastasia Mikheli, is a former Channel 9 journalist and presenter who has been invited to stand for parliament. Unlike Anastasia, Yosef was elected at his first attempt. He is now one of 11 Knesset members of the Yisrael Beiteinu party, which is part of the government. Today, Yosef Shagal addresses the residents of a home for elderly Russians. The mood in the room is one of intransigence towards Arabs, a mood made more intense by the fact that Israel is, at the time of the meeting, being bombarded from across the Lebanese border. One resident, who's a veteran of the Soviet Union's hard-won victory over the Nazis during the Second World War, says that Israel should not negotiate with its enemies in Lebanon, Syria or Iran, but defeat them in battle and then talk.
Нет политического решения без военного решения. Сначала...
Когда я говорю, что Либерман выступал с тем, что начинать с Сирии.
Yosef Shagal suggests that he and the Yisrael Beiteinu party agree with this pugnacious approach. But the party policy that has caused the most comment, provoking accusations of racism, even fascism, deals with the fate of Israel's own Arab community. Just like the Russians, the Arabs make up about 20% of Israel's population. Yosef Shagal and his colleagues argue that the borders of Israel should be redrawn so that many of the main Arab population centers become designated as occupied territories, or, if it is ever established, become part of the Palestinian state. This argument convinces many Russian immigrants.
Ни для кого не секрет, и все прекрасно в Израиле это знают, просто не все об этом говорят.
It's no secret, and everybody in Israel knows about it. But not everyone speaks about it, that the Arabs are a separate population, a colony, which is absolutely closed off in the tight boundaries of its ethnic identity. This population does not only fail to participate in the life of the country, but places itself at a distance. So what are we talking about? We're saying that unfortunately, and it's a great shame, that the Arab sector is not an integral part of the state of Israel.
Yosef Shagal, born in Azerbaijan and living in Israel for just a dozen years, argues that native-born Israeli citizens should have their citizenship withdrawn if they do not declare their complete loyalty to the state. So, the Russians of Israel may be diverse, proud, and insist on living on their own terms, and they may even dramatically change Israeli society. But whatever happens, the Russians are here to stay, and they are determined that Israel is here to stay too. But some Russians are reluctant to commit themselves to a life of perpetual conflict.
I'm thinking about my kid, but I've seen too many 2-year-old kids torn apart and 5-year-old kids shot, and from both sides, okay? I don't think that any ideology, any state, I don't know, anything justifies sacrifice of your family, your child, or something like this. I can't stand the people that are saying that my son didn't die in vain, because for me, everyone that dies in war dies in vain.